I'm David, I'm 77 years old, and I spent half a century waiting for the right moment to apologize to my brother. I told myself I'd do it someday, when enough time had passed, when I'd figured out exactly what to say, when it wouldn't be so hard. I finally worked up the courage to go see him, and I was 50 years too late. He's still alive, but the person I needed to apologize to is already gone. I drove 6 hours yesterday to see my brother Thomas. I'd been rehearsing what I was going to say for weeks, practicing the apology I should have given him 50 years ago. I walked into that care facility with my whole speech prepared, ready to finally tell him the truth about what happened that day in 1974. But when I got to his room and he looked up at me, there was nothing in his eyes. No recognition, no anger, no forgiveness, just empty confusion. The nurse told me he has advanced Alzheimer's. He doesn't remember me at all. Thomas and I grew up close. We were only 2 years apart, and people used to say we were more like twins than brothers. We did everything together. Played on the same baseball teams, double dated in high school, even planned to buy a house together someday and live next door to each other with our families. That was the plan. Brothers for life. We had our arguments growing up, like all siblings do, but nothing serious. Nothing that lasted. Until 1974. I was 27. Thomas was 25. We were both working for our father's construction company. Dad was getting older and starting to talk about retirement, about leaving the business to us. We'd always assumed we'd run it together, split everything 50, keep it in the family. Then Dad had his first heart attack. Not fatal, but serious enough that he couldn't work anymore. He needed to make a decision about the company faster than he'd planned. One night, he called us both over to the house. Mom made dinner, and after we ate, Dad told us he'd decided to leave the company to me. Not both of us, just me. He said I was older, more responsible, better with the finances. He said Thomas could stay on as a worker, same pay, but I'd be the owner. I remember the look on Thomas's face, like he'd been slapped. He asked Dad why, what had he done wrong? Why wasn't he good enough? Dad got defensive, said it wasn't about that. Someone had to make the decision. Thomas turned to me, waiting for me to say something, to argue, to tell Dad this wasn't fair. I didn't say anything. I should have told Dad we'd run it together, or I wouldn't take it at all. But I didn't. I just sat there and let it happen. Because part of me, the worst part of me, thought maybe Dad was right. Maybe I was more responsible. Maybe I should be in charge. Thomas left that night without saying goodbye to anyone. The next day at work, he told me we needed to talk. We went out to his truck on lunch break, and he asked me point blank, "Did you know Dad was going to do this? Did you talk to him about it?" I got defensive. I told him, of course. I didn't know. That Dad made his own decisions. Thomas said he didn't believe me. He said I'd always been Dad's favorite, always got the benefit of the doubt, and now I was getting the whole business while he got nothing. That's when I said the thing I can't take back. I was angry, defensive, scared that maybe he was right about me being the favorite. So I lashed out. I told him maybe Dad chose me because I actually showed up on time, because I didn't take 2-hour lunch breaks, because I finished jobs instead of leaving them half done. None of that was true. Thomas worked as hard as I did, maybe harder. But I was wounded, and I wanted to wound him back. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "You know what, David? Keep the business, keep Dad's approval. I don't need either one." He got out of the truck, went inside, packed up his tools, and walked off the job. That was the last real conversation we ever had. I expected him to cool off in a few days, maybe a week. I thought he'd come back and we'd talk it through, figure it out like we always did. But days turned into weeks. I called him a few times, but he never answered. I saw him at Mom's house on Christmas that year, and he barely looked at me. I told myself he was being childish, that he'd get over it eventually. Weeks turned into months, then years. Every time I thought about reaching out, about really reaching out and apologizing, I'd talk myself out of it. I'd think about how much time had passed, how awkward it would be, how he probably didn't want to hear from me anyway. I told myself that if he really wanted to fix things, he could call me. I was the one Dad chose. I had the successful business. If anyone should be apologizing, it was him for walking away. But the truth is, I was terrified. Terrified to admit I was wrong. Terrified to face what I'd said to him. Terrified that if I tried to apologize and he rejected me, I'd have to accept that I'd destroyed the most important relationship in my life over my own pride and insecurity. The business did well. I worked hard, made good money, expanded into residential construction. Dad was proud of me before he died. Everyone said I'd done such a good job with the company, turned it into something bigger than Dad ever could have. But I'd think about Thomas sometimes, wonder what he was doing, if he was happy, if he ever thought about me. I'd see something that would remind me of him, some inside joke we used to have, or a song we both liked, and I'd feel this weight in my chest. But I never picked up the phone. My wife Linda knew about the situation with Thomas. She'd ask me every few years if I'd thought about reaching out, trying to fix things. I'd tell her maybe someday, when the time was right. She'd give me this look that said she knew I was making excuses, but she never pushed. I think she understood that some things people have to come to on their own. I heard things about Thomas over the years, through other family members. He'd moved to Ohio, started his own small contracting business, got married, had 2 kids. He was doing fine. That made it easier somehow to keep putting it off. He didn't need me. He'd built his own life. Maybe it was better this way. Then 5 years ago, Linda died. Cancer. It happened fast. 8 months from diagnosis to gone. In those final weeks, when she knew she was dying, she said something to me I haven't been able to forget. She said, "David, don't let pride steal what matters. Life is too short to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. It's always now." I knew she was talking about Thomas. I promised her I'd reach out, that I'd make it right. But after she died, I fell apart for a while. I couldn't think about anything but getting through each day without her. Months passed, then a year, then 2. I kept thinking I'd do it once. I felt stronger, once I had the right words. Last year, I ran into Thomas's daughter at a grocery store. I recognized her from photos I'd seen on social media. I introduced myself, told her I was her uncle. She knew who I was. She was polite but distant. We made small talk for a few minutes, and then I asked how Thomas was doing. Her face changed. She said, "You don't know." I said, "No, what?" She told me Thomas had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 3 years ago. He was 75. It was progressing quickly. He was in a memory care facility. Now, didn't recognize most people anymore. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. 3 years. He'd been sick for 3 years, and I didn't know, because we hadn't spoken in 5 decades. I asked her which facility. She hesitated, then wrote down the address. She said, "I don't know if he'll know who you are, but you should probably go soon if you're going to go at all." I sat with that piece of paper for 3 months. I'd look at it every day, tell myself today was the day I'd drive up there. But I was afraid. Afraid of what I'd find. Afraid it was already too late. Afraid that even if he did recognize me, he'd tell me to leave, that I didn't deserve forgiveness. But Linda's words kept coming back to me. The perfect moment is now. It's always now. So yesterday, I finally went. I drove those 6 hours rehearsing my speech. I was going to tell him the truth about that day, with Dad. I was going to tell him that I did know Dad was planning to leave me the business. Dad had asked me about it a week before, asked if I thought Thomas could handle the responsibility. I should have said yes, should have insisted we run it together. But I was scared and ambitious, and I told Dad that I thought maybe it would be better if one person was in charge, to avoid conflict. I planted the seed, and then I let Thomas believe I was blindsided by Dad's decision, let him think I was just as surprised as he was. I was going to tell him that everything he said that day was right. I was Dad's favorite. I did get the benefit of the doubt, and I threw him under the bus to protect my own interests. I was going to tell him that the business success meant nothing, that every achievement felt hollow, because the person I most wanted to share it with was gone. I was going to tell him I was sorry, deeply sorry, and that not a year has gone by that I didn't think about him, miss him, wish I could take back what I said. But when I got there and saw him sitting in that common room, staring at a television he wasn't really watching, and I said his name, and he looked at me with those empty eyes, I knew all those words I'd spent 50 years not saying would mean nothing to him now. The nurse told me he's in the advanced stages. He doesn't remember his wife, his children, his own life. Whatever memories he had of me, of us, of that fight, and everything that came before it, they're gone. I sat with him for an hour anyway. I held his hand. I told him I was sorry, even though he didn't understand what I was apologizing for. I told him about some of our childhood memories, things we used to do, hoping maybe something would spark recognition. Nothing did. He was polite, smiled vaguely, but I was a stranger to him. At one point, he asked me if I knew when his mother was coming to pick him up. Our mother died in 1998. When I left, I cried in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. Not because he didn't recognize me, because I'd thrown away 50 years with my brother, 50 years we could have had together, over pride and fear and stubbornness. Because I'd convinced myself there would always be time later, time to fix it, time to make it right. Because I'd let what Linda told me on her deathbed, the wisdom she tried to give me, sit unused for 5 more years while Thomas's mind slowly disappeared. I think about all the conversations we never had, all the family gatherings where we stood on opposite sides of the room, all the years his kids grew up, not knowing their uncle, all the times I could have been there for him, and wasn't. I think about how he faced his diagnosis alone, or at least without me, when we'd promised as kids that we'd always have each other's backs no matter what. The worst part is I can never tell him the truth now. I can never give him the apology he deserved. I can never explain why I did what I did, or hear him say whether he forgives me or not. That chance is gone. He's still alive, but the person he was, the person who deserved to hear these words, is already dead. And I waited until it was too late. I've been thinking a lot about all the times I told myself I'd reach out someday. Someday, when enough time had passed. Someday, when I had the perfect words. Someday, when it wouldn't be so hard. Someday became 50 years, and 50 years became never. There are people in my life now, other relationships that need mending, other things that need to be said. My own son and I have been distant since a disagreement we had about his career choices 5 years ago. Not as bad as Thomas and me, but heading in that direction. I keep thinking, I'll wait until he comes around, sees that I was right. But I learned something sitting across from my brother, who didn't know who I was. Being right doesn't matter. Being right doesn't keep you warm at night. Being right doesn't give you back the years you lost. So I called my son this morning. I didn't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect words. I just called and said, I'm sorry. I was wrong to judge your choices. I'm proud of you. I love you, and I don't want to waste any more time being distant. He was quiet for a moment, then he said he'd been wanting to call me too. We talked for 2 hours. We're having dinner next week. I'm telling you this because if you're waiting for someday to fix something, to say something, to reach out to someone, I'm begging you, don't wait. Someday might never come. The person might die. They might get sick. You might lose your nerve again. The perfect moment doesn't exist. The right words don't exist. All that exists is now, this moment, this chance. I'll never get to make things right with Thomas. That door is closed. But you still have your doors open. Whatever you need to say, whoever you need to say it to, say it now. Before it's too late. Before the person you're waiting to apologize to forgets who you are. Before the relationship you're planning to fix someday becomes a relationship you can never fix at all. I'm 77 years old. My brother is alive, but gone, and I'm living with the weight of 50 years of silence that I can never break. Don't make my mistake. Don't let pride, or fear, or stubbornness steal decades from you. Don't convince yourself there will always be time. Later, time runs out. And when it does, all the perfect words you were saving don't matter anymore. All that matters is that you never said them when they could have made a difference.